Alright guys, I just watched Thor Love and Thunder, so let's talk about it. So last night I attended the world premiere for Thor Love and Thunder, and man, it was such an awesome experience. I mean, I got to meet Taika Waititi, Chris Hemsworth, Miles Teller. Seeing Natalie Portman and Christian Bale in person was an entirely different experience. As soon as I walked in that theater after watching the movie, I just had so much going on in my brain, so much processing happening. Now, having sat with the movie for a couple of hours, this morning I wrote down the good and what I loved. I also wrote down the bad and what I didn't like, and now I'm gonna share it all with you guys. So, if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing and hit that notification for future videos. Now, let's dive deep into Thor Love and Thunder. So guys, this movie is fire. I thoroughly enjoyed it. If I had to use one word to describe this film, it would be fun. It does not take itself serious at all. As if you want to go to the theaters to watch a movie that's going to make you laugh and forget about reality, this is that movie. I promise you guys, my theater was laughing every 5 seconds. It is such a comedy, and it'll make you laugh out loud. It's just a lot of fun. You know, with the current state of the world, I think life can get pretty stressful for a lot of us, and sometimes we just gotta go to the theater and escape reality and just have a good laugh. And I feel like this movie is going to do that for a lot of people. One of my favorite parts about this movie is the way it developed the character of Thor. This is a character we've been with since day one, and yet still, this movie finds a way to reinvent Thor the same way Ragnarok reinvented Thor. Thor, by the end of this film, is in a completely different space, and he's gone on a crazy journey of getting from point A to point B. You guys can also expect him to be really powerful. I think those debates of who's the most powerful character in the MCU are gonna be lit up once again after people watch this movie, because Thor is really powerful. If you missed the Thor from Ragnarok, if you missed the Thor from Infinity War, well then buckle up, because I think he's even more powerful in this movie. All the action in this movie is so good, from Gore to Jane to Valkyrie to Korg. All of the action is incredible, and I think a lot of that is due to the fact that the soundtrack for this film is so fire. The soundtrack is exactly how you would expect the soundtrack for this movie to be. Heavy Guns N' Roses, heavy like rock and roll soundtrack. That was infused into the action and it elevated it to a whole nother level. But a hero is only as good as the villain that pushes them to their limits. And guys, Christian Bale as Thor the God Butcher is one of the best villains in the MCU. I don't know if I'm ready to say that he's the best, or if he's even in the top 3. I just know he's one of the best villains in the MCU. From the moment you see him on screen and from the moment they introduce his character, you understand why he's doing what he's doing. You understand his motivation, and it makes him such an understandable and relatable villain, because if any of us were in his situation, we would probably do the same thing that he's doing. Now, Gore was so great, and Christian Bale completely owned this role, and he just showed his acting expertise in a lot of great scenes, but I do wish we got more scenes with Thor. He was so good that I just wish we got more. And a lot of that is to the testament of a 2-hour runtime. In a 2-hour runtime, a lot of things are confined, and you're gonna wish you got to see more. But again, this is a 2-hour movie, so again, I'll get into that runtime because it does fall into, I guess, some of my criticisms for the film. But Christian Bale is damn good as Thor the God Butcher. Now, we've talked about Thor, Gore. Let's talk about the mighty Thor. Jane Foster is back, and guys, in this movie, she feels like a completely different character. The Jane you remember from Thor 1 and Thor 2, yeah, throw your memory of that Jane out the window, because this is Taika's Jane, and she is awesome. She's so much more lively. She's like flavorful. I don't know, the Jane from the other Thor movies came off as kind of bland to me, but Jane here, she's comedic. She has a personality. Her relationship with Thor is infinitely better, and you genuinely feel the love and the chemistry between Jane, Thor, Natalie Portman, and Chris Hemsworth. It is so much better from the relationship we remember from the previous Thor films. Like I mentioned before, Jane's action is also really great. Her wielding Mjolnir and her Mjolnir being able to like separate and then come back together. Jane, dude, the action with Jane is so awesome in this movie. Jane also had a really great scene with Valkyrie, and it's not a romantic relationship, it's more of a sisterhood. And considering what Valkyrie has been through in the past and the history we know Valkyrie to have, her having a sister-like figure like Jane just made for such a perfect pairing, and I wish we got to see more of Valkyrie and Jane and see more of that relationship and that friendship fleshed out throughout this film. Now, I also want to talk about the world building in this movie because, guys, this movie sets up a lot. There are 2 post-credit scenes, and the first one will get you so hyped. The second one, I can't really talk about how I feel about the second one until the movie comes out. When the movie comes out, I will talk about it because the second one, I just didn't think it needed to be included in this movie. And in this movie in general, dude, it does some crazy world building, guys. Like, they did some things in this movie, and we saw some things in this movie that I never thought we would really see in a Marvel film. But Marvel is in that era of going to those places and exploring parts of the Marvel universe that we never thought we would see in the live action. Now, guys, we're gonna transition from the good, the great, and everything I loved to my criticisms about this film and the things that didn't necessarily resonate with me. But in the middle of that is the comedy. This movie is very comedic. It truly is a comedy. And for the most part, everyone in my theater was laughing every 5 seconds. But for me personally, there were moments where I was laughing out loud, but there were also moments where I was like kind of cringing, and it kind of felt like I was watching an SNL skit. So the comedy for me, which is a huge part of this movie, is kind of hit or miss for the most part. But again, there are those moments that you're gonna find really funny. There's also gonna be those moments where you're just not gonna laugh at a joke that you're supposed to laugh at. And this movie is so comedy heavy that I don't think it ever really commits to fully being serious. You know, there are some moments in this film where some crazy things happen and some really serious things are being talked about, but I guess the tone that's executed in that scene isn't as serious as it should be, because 5 seconds later, 10 seconds later, another joke is gonna be cracked. And for me, my favorite types of movies are the movies that make me feel multiple emotions. They make me laugh, cry, feel loved, stressed, everything in between. Now, I will say there is a scene between Thor and Jane where it gets really serious, and the seriousness is coming from a place of love and concern that they both have for each other. And that was something I really enjoyed, and I wish we got to see more of that throughout this film, because this is kind of like one of the first times we're seeing a superhero relationship go into battle together. When they're in battle together, the chances are there of one of them losing each other. So I wish this film did a better job of balancing the emotion and the seriousness and the comedy and the lightheartedness. But again, this is a Taika Waititi film through and through, and Taika movies they usually tend to be very lighthearted and very comedic. Now, my final little criticism is the runtime. Guys, there are some amazing things we see in this movie, and there's some amazing relationships that are formed and some really awesome characters, but I wish we got to see more of some of these relationships explored. I wish we got to see more scenes with Gore the God Butcher. There are some awesome things that they introduced in this movie, but I wish we got to see more of that fleshed out, and I wish it gave us more because it was so good that I just wanted to see more of it. And this movie moves very fast. Its pacing, it's very fast, it's non-stop. When we first see Jane to the point where she becomes Thor, it all happens very, very quickly. And I don't think the movie really gives us, as audience members, time to really just sit and comprehend what we're seeing, or sit and like revel with the fact that Jane just became Thor. She just kind of just becomes Thor. So the movie moves very fast, and I think a lot of that is attributed to that 2-hour runtime. So I do wish it was a bit longer. But guys, I promise you, the good, the great, and everything I loved totally outweighs the criticisms of the runtime, some of the comedy, and I guess the lack of seriousness. And I think you guys are gonna have a really fun time at the movies watching Thor Love and Thunder, because it's a lot of fun. The action is great. You're gonna see Thor at his peak, and the journey that this movie takes Thor on is really compelling, and it's really wholesome. Like, by the end of it, I think a lot of you guys will be really, really satisfied with the movie you just watched. I don't know if I'm ready to say that this movie is better than Thor Ragnarok, because I love Thor Ragnarok, and that is one of my favorite Marvel movies. But, you know, I'm gonna have to watch it again before I put it over Ragnarok. But it's really, really good. I would easily put it over the first 2 Thor movies. I really, really enjoyed it, guys. So let me know in the comment section down below, what are you guys most excited to see in Thor Love and Thunder? Does my review excite you guys? Does it worry you guys? Let me know in the comment section down below. Let's talk about it. With that being said, thank you guys for watching my initial reaction to Thor Love and Thunder. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and subscribe, and hit that notification on my channel for future videos. With that being said, thank you guys for watching. I love you guys 3000, and I'll see you guys